I'm Casey Berry. I'm here on The Beauty Within, which I want to thank John Agnello for inviting me to. So I'm ready to get going.
Awesome. So tell us about your story, Casey.
So right now I'm a life coach, and it took me a long time to get here. And I'm super happy to finally be at this point in my life. But growing up was a big struggle ever since a young age. I was born in Las Vegas. My mom moved out there with my dad because he was a drug addict, alcoholic, and he was in construction at that time, and there was no work here. So they moved out west. They ended up having me there, and then he got even worse with drugs. And he ended up becoming super abusive, beat her, and she made that promise to herself that he ever hit her with me in her arms, she would leave. And that's what ended up happening. She moved back here, and he followed. So he was constantly that person that was in and out of your life. And as a young kid, I knew I didn't want that. I was very guarded and protective of myself, even from a young age. So I never spoke a word to him. He was just a stranger that kept coming in and out of my life. Meanwhile, living in the house, my cousin was living with me, my aunt, they were both drug addicts as well. So I was constantly surrounded by that turmoil and what drugs and alcohol could do to a family, which is the constant fighting, stealing, manipulating, all that. And I finally had enough. I ended up being that 13-year-old where my dad got out of rehab. He came back, promised to help with my mom. I was there, and come home from work one day to find money stolen, all my liquor gone, and I had enough. You know, when you just like get to that point where you see red, you're like, I can't do this anymore. This is done. This has to end. Then it turned into that abuse cycle between him and I, where it ended up being a fist fight, getting him out of the house. But I finally got him out of the house. I got my cousin out of the house. I'm like, I need peace. Peace in my life is what's of most importance. So unfortunately, that's the way it ended with my father. Is last thing is cursing at each other back and forth, fist fighting, and being dragged out the front door. And that's the last I ever saw from him until drugs actually took him. So that was the hardship that I dealt with growing up alongside with being in school. And I was the odd man out, you know, not fitting into a certain group, but still being your true authentic self. So I wasn't the nerd, but I was a straight A student. I wasn't the jock yet. I was a skateboarder, gymnast, like an athlete. So I just never had that click that I fit into. So I was the one that was constantly bullied, put down. My nickname was the wind. Because anytime I'd come into a conversation, they'd be like, is that the wind I hear or my imagination? And just walk away. So I was that kid sitting alone at lunch. And in gymnastics, I knew somebody that was homeschooled. I begged my mom to have me be homeschooled, which I'm so grateful that she did. And I ended up being homeschooled from 5th grade on. So I never had that friend group. I never had that family group. It was constantly just a lot of alone time. So you become it either makes you or breaks you. For a little bit, it broke me. Because not having anybody, that's when self-esteem issues kicked in. So like the eating disorder kicked in, the self-harm, the suicidal tendencies, those all kicked in during that point. But finally, I loved being alone. Right once I was able to overcome all that and realize that had nothing to do with me, that was control issues of trying to control everything else that was going on around me. So to upbring myself, it was like, okay, I need to find my personal peace. I'm comfortable in who I am. I'm so happy with who I am. And I never actually want to change. You know, body image is a body image, no matter what. To me, it didn't matter what shape, size I was. That was never a thing. Even though that's what an eating disorder seemed like it is. It wasn't. It was just trying to control everything that I couldn't. So what I found that I could control is my inner peace. So I found that through yoga, meditation, sound bowl therapy, and just being comfortable in yourself, sitting out in nature, going barefoot in the grass. That's where I found my true peace. And everyone has their own. And that's what made me want to become a life coach. Once I figured that out about myself and how I actually do love myself, despite all that, and I would never take any of it back. Like, I wouldn't change any of my past. So many people would be like, oh, I regret doing this, I regret doing that. I don't. I know that sometimes sounds crappy to say, but I really don't regret any of it. It made me who I am today, and I cannot say I'm more proud of myself than ever before.